Jaden Ivey is a guy that came over about a trade deadline that I had a lot of interest in, but we have not seen him. But we are possibly getting some good news to where we can possibly see Jaden Ivey return to the basketball court. But the biggest question is, can he build momentum to end the season? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some early free agents that could potentially end up on the Chicago Bulls. And we're going to talk about the Bulls matchup tonight versus the Houston Rockets. Y'all know before we talk about it and break it all down, you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down for today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, love talking Bulls basketball, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now let's talk about Jaden Ivey to get things rolling off for today's content. Now, it's been some time since we've seen Jaden Ivey on the basketball court, and I might be in the minority or sometime maybe part of the majority. I don't necessarily know. We haven't talked about Jaden Ivey in a while, but I was one of those guys that had some interest in Jaden Ivey coming on to the Chicago Bulls after that injury and potentially being a piece for the Chicago Bulls that we can hold on to moving forward. Now, we do know at the end of this season, he will be a restricted free agent, and the Chicago Bulls will have the ability to extend an offer and match any offer that he shall receive. But the problem is that we have not seen Jaden Ivey. The last time I really seen and heard from him, he sounded like a man defeated, to be quite honest with you. And I'm hoping that with some time away from basketball, with just working on getting better, getting healthier, he sounds like a man that's a little bit of reborn. I understand that right now the situation is not as greatest right now, going from winning with the Detroit Pistons to coming to basically a losing franchise and a losing team over here in the Chicago Bulls. But I still want to know if he can build momentum. It seems like he's able to get downhill, but it looks like he may not have that athleticism that he had prior to the injury. But I still have interest in seeing this young man play for the sake of, can we keep guys that we traded for around to build a nice young team moving forward? This is not a conversation about head coaching. I know some people will go and talk about that, but I solely want to focus on the player development. That's been my mindset after the trade deadline for the Chicago Bulls. It's been about Josh Giddey. It's been about Montes Buzelis. It's been about trying to find out who that came over that were a part of the newcomers, who's going to stand out to where they can have a place on this team. So far, it has been Leonard Miller and Rob Dillingham. So that brings a larger question that we all have to ask. Billy Donovan, when he returns, Jaden Ivey, are you going to cut the minutes of Leonard Miller or Rob Dillingham for minutes to go to Jaden Ivey? And me personally, I don't think you should be cutting their minutes. We all have a consensus or an idea that we pretty much agree on in saying that the guy that just cut his braids, his minutes need to be cut. And that's Patrick Williams. That is I'm not going to go on some rant and talk about his basketball game. It's just that we all know what it is. Jaden Ivey, if he returns to the basketball team, he needs to take minutes away from guys that have not been producing well. And one of those guys, unfortunately, is Patrick Williams. However, here's the challenge. He's a guard. Rob is a guard. So there will be some challenges. Will you then turn to Colin Sexton and say, hey, buddy, it's just not happening tonight? Or how would you allow all this to play out? Is it going to be determined on how guys start the game? How do guys, enter into the game coming off the bench? It's going to be very, very interesting. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be the only one alone that's going to be a little hot if you remove the minutes of Rob Dillingham, you remove the minutes of Leonard Miller in favor of some guys that we know it's not going to be around next season. At least that's my anticipation. I don't imagine that Colin Sexton is going to want to be here. I'm pretty sure that Anthony Simons doesn't want to be here. So it's going to be, how do you get those guys that have a real stronger possibility to be around this team? How do you ensure that they get ample playing time so they can continue their development and they can be on this team? So it's going to be interesting. But the ball is in Jaden Ivey's court when it comes to building up momentum to end this season. I think we got less than 15 games left before we ride out, and then we move on to NBA playoff basketball, and then we start talking about, hey, how important is this offseason for the Chicago Bulls? You're going to have X amount of money available. You're going to have some draft picks. Hopefully you get another draft pick from the Portland Trail Blazers. We shall see, and we shall cross that bridge when it happens. But still, we got to see if Jaden Ivey can build some momentum to end this season, not only just for the Chicago Bulls, but for himself too. Because again, he sounds like a man that was defeated. And that's not a player that looks like he's ready to elevate his game, speaking the way he spoke one of the last times we saw him. So hopefully he can piece it all together and we can go out there and say, hey, he had a really strong finish to the season. Let's go out there and get some work with him over the offseason, maybe build some chemistry up with some of the guys that's on the team, and then maybe come back and continue to build off that. But he has to enter the game and build some momentum, because right now there's two guys outshining him that came over. You know what I'm saying? There's two guys that came over and they're outshining him already. And that is because he's been out of sight and out of mind. So we'll see what happens with Jaden Ivey and Ken, or if he build momentum to end the season. Let me know how y'all feeling about that. Now I want to talk about some early free agent targets that was first put out there from Bleacher Report. Zach Buckley, more specifically, went through all NBA teams and gave each team a dream target, an optimistic target, and a realistic target. I'm not talking about the whole entire NBA. You know, this is a Bulls channel. So I'm going to talk about the Chicago Bulls. And Zach Buckley, in his mind or his evaluation, his analysis, the dream target for the Chicago Bulls is the center from Detroit and Jalen Durham, who's going to be a restricted free agent once the season ends. And that is absolutely what it is, a dream target, because I don't see it happening. He agreed that he doesn't believe it happening. But if the Bulls are going to have so much money, one can't hurt but to at least try. And I would love a player like Jalen Durham over here because he brings toughness. He's going to bring a good offensive and defensive game to the Chicago Bulls, and he has that youthfulness that will line up and fit the timeline of the youthfulness that we already have on the team. Now, Zach's optimistic target is Tyree Eason. I think this is more of a possibility than Jalen Durham. This is a guy that's going to go out there, and he's a really good wing defender, solid from the three-point line. I'm interested more in his game. I already told myself and CDubb that I'm going to go out there and really hone in more on watching Rockets basketball. What's even much better is that we get to watch the Rockets later today, so we get an up-close eye on Tyree Eason. The crazy part is that we was a few picks away from getting him. But, however, now when you have money that's available, you could potentially go out there and snag yourself a really good basketball player if you do things correctly, if you're the Chicago Bulls. But hey, we shall see. But that is the optimistic target mapped out by my fella from Bleacher Report. The realistic target is Mitchell Robinson. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I believe he's a solid player. Has a history of, the injuries. Has been relatively healthy the last few seasons, relatively. Could be a piece that you can utilize on your team if you're the Chicago Bulls. However, it doesn't move me much. It's not a bad pickup. That's why it's the more realistic pickup, to where it's like, Man, and Mitchell Robinson, for as long as I've been covering the Chicago Bulls on this platform, man, his name is constantly being thrown and mentioned around the Chicago Bulls. And that's one of those things to where it's like, I get it, but nah. I think I got a better option than that. Just me personally, I'd rather get somebody that's younger, a little bit more healthier, a little bit more, athletically gifted. Not saying that he's not any of those things. It's just that I'd rather have somebody fit the timeline of the Chicago Bulls young players. Now, it's going to be a bit contradictory simply because my free agent target is Walker Kessler, and he's coming off an injury. So it is a bit contradictory, but Walker Kessler is going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season. And I think the Bulls, if they move with a sense of urgency and don't dig in their backside, they might legitimately have an opportunity to go and snag the young player. They got Larry Marketing over there. They just traded for Triple J. What are you going to do with Walker Kessler? You're going to have to cough up some money on Chicago. But hey, you might have to do it anyway. You might have to do it anyway. Simply because you have not necessarily drafted too well. We don't necessarily know what the temperature is around the league with players willingly wanting to come to Chicago. So you might have to go out there and overpay. You might have to do that. Look, it's not something that I necessarily agree with, but this is something that you might have to do if you're the Chicago Bulls organization to figure it out. So my number one target is Walker Kessler because of a lot of reasons, because of the situation that he's in, because how good he is defensively and what he can provide for the Chicago Bulls, along with the youthfulness. And I ain't even going to lie to you because I said it 10 times prior. We could have had him, but y'all wanted to get Dalen Terry, who's no longer with us today. I'm not saying he's dead. He's just not a Chicago Bull. That's it. But hey, y'all let me know how y'all feeling about that right there, man. The dream target that was listed from Zach Buckley from Bleacher Report was Jalen Duren. The optimistic target was Tari Eason. The realistic target was Mitchell Robinson. Cool. My target, Walker Kessler. Let me know where you all stand on that. Now, before we get up out of here, I want to talk about the matchup that we have later today versus the Houston Rockets. And if all things go smooth, we will be on a live call. You know, things happen with family and stuff and things come up. But our anticipation is that we will be there calling this game. And it should be a really fun game. It's going to be interesting to see if Montes Buzelis talked that shit to KD. He talked that smack to Luka, and Luka dropped a 50 bomb on his head. And Kevin Durant just passed Michael Jordan on the all-time scoring list. So congrats to that basketball player. And Kevin Durant, one of the best scorers we ever seen. Shout out to him. He just want to go hoop. And then it's going to be interesting to see if Sengun plays and how the Bulls match up with him. Can they force him to do a couple bonehead stuff that he's been doing over the last few weeks? Because I'd be like, bro, what we doing? What we doing? But they do have some really good players over there down in Houston. And it should be a hell of a matchup. And I'm honestly excited for it. Y'all know CDubb, if he pop up, Kevin Durant is his favorite player. He might pull up with pom-poms. Now I'm just playing. But hey, Kevin Durant is a hell of a player. So it's going to be fun to see him. It's going to be fun to see Reed Shepherd and see what he can do. Can Josh Giddey go out there and exploit that matchup with the size? Or who's going to be guarding Josh Giddey? They got Tari Eason that can go out there. They got the Thompson twin that can go out and guard Josh Giddey. So it's going to have to be some others that come to the forefront and help out the playmaker of this offense. Is another triple-double in line tonight? We shall see. You know what I'm saying? And what would the scoring output look like for a guy like Josh Giddey? And can Montes Buzelis go out there and have himself a really good game? And who else is going to step up? Me personally, I'm hoping I see a little bit of Jaden Ivey, just, as a personal thing. Right now, he's listed as questionable. We'll see if he's going to actually play tonight. That's coming in a little bit later. But hey, it's going to be a fun matchup, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just go out there and watch these Bulls go and compete, at least for these last few weeks, man. It's going to be At least we got to have fun and talk our stuff and spend time with y'all and spend time with each other, because we have a lot of fun doing our live calls. So if you ain't tuning in to the live call, man, just make sure you're there. And it's gonna be a lot of fun, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun, like we always do. Through the lows, we're gonna laugh through the pain for real, because we got noodles, no pack, cereal with the canned murk, the powder murk, no murk. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode, man. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, man. And y'all already know, make sure you always see red, even when it's difficult at times. But hey, y'all already know, we're going to catch y'all later for sure. Peace out, y'all.
Cognac. Gang.